Alrighty, so it's Trish from Imagini here in Sydney, and today I'm just going to show you how I do editing. Now, this is an edit on a friend of mine's. Hi Mel from Flash on Photography. Her light was just superb in here, so we're just going to do just a bit of retouch, and I'll show you how I do this. So I work in Bridge, so I'll just select the images that I'm going to work on straight away. And then I just right click and open in Adobe Camera Raw. Okay, so it's a little bit dark for me, these two. So I'm just going to bring it up to 1.5. Okay. Then what I do is white balance. So I go to my white balance tool. And yep, okay, and then as you can see, we really want to bring out the shadow detail. So we just go to the shadows and just bring the slider across so we see some details. Now I'm not doing any cropping today because it's not up to me, and then I might just tone down some of those highlights as well. And maybe bring it up a little bit more, and then drop those highlights. Okay, so these two are good. Okay, with this one and this one, probably about 1. Bring up that shadow detail. And of course our white balance tool, to yellow, to green. Okay, I can always take it back to as shot. Oh, no, definitely not as shot. Okay, so bring this up a little bit. Okay, drop some of the highlights, maybe drop some of the contrast. So we're going for a nice soft painterly look. Okay, maybe bring up just a little bit. Okay, and finally this one here, that's about a 0.5. Bring out the shadows. Drop down on the highlights and white balance. I'll drop that down a little bit. Okay, done. Now I can open them all in Photoshop by simply holding down Shift and selecting them all, and then just go with Open Images. Alright, so I'll start off by working on this one. So the first thing I do is with my curves layer, I go for my white point. So holding down the Alt key and clicking down on the arrow, the white arrow, while holding the Alt key, I'll just bring that up until I start seeing a bit of speckly. And then I'll check my black point. Yep, no, that's fine. And there we have it, before and after. Okay, and then what I do is run my frequency separation action. Play. Okay, and then we zoom in. The first thing I do is turn off my skin texture layer and have a look at the skin tone. So the first thing I want to do is smooth out the skin tones. So I go to my skin tone blend layer, and on the mask, not the layer but the mask, with a brush, so B for brush, at 60% opacity. Okay, with the white brush, soft white brush, I simply paint it in. Okay. So this just nicely blends the tones. I want to keep those highlights. And there we have it. Okay. The next thing I'll do is I'll work on the arms. So I'll go to my skin texture layer. Now the layer, not the mask, but the layer. I'll go J for the patch tool, or over here, patch tool. And I'll just select, drag and drop, select, drag and drop, select, drag and drop, select, drag and drop. And there we have it. Okay, try this part here. Okay, no and no, take it back. Okay, so with this part here, there's a dark section here, so I want to sort of blend that in a little bit more. So I'll go to my powder skin, the layer, not the mask, the layer, and then I'll do the eyedropper tool. So I for eyedropper, or up here you have eyedropper tool. Let me do that again, eyedropper tool. Okay, and then I just select an area where I want to replicate that color. So I might drop it right here, select that color, then go B for brush, and at 30% opacity I will then paint in like this. Voila. Okay, same thing on this side. I for eyedropper, select an area that you want to replicate, click to select the color, B for brush, 30% opacity, paint it in. Okay, I for eyedropper, select, paint it in. Oops, too big. Alright, so that's the before, that's the after. Alrighty, J for patch tool, and I just want it to smooth out. Okay. Alright, so the before, the after, the before, the after. Okay. Alright, then what I do is on the skin texture mask, not the layer, the mask, B for brush, X to change over to black brush at 30% opacity with a soft brush. I just smooth the skin out a little bit. Now the great thing about this action is if you're not happy with that, if that's too much, hit X to get the white brush and simply bring it back. And there we have it. Alright, so moving on to the face. Okay, a little bit of work, not that much. The first thing I would probably do is do under the eyes. So I go to my skin powder layer, the layer, not the mask, the layer. Same thing as we did with the arms. So I go with a brush at 30% opacity. I'll pick eye, select a section that you want to replicate, and then B for brush, and just paint that in. And that just lightens up the area under the eyes. Same thing on the other side. I for eyedropper, select an area, B for brush, paint it in. There we go. So the before and the after. Okay, with the forehead, I start off with J for patch tool and just drag and drop. Okay. Okay. Do this section. Alrighty. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my stamp tool. So S for stamp, or stamp over here, clone stamp tool. 100% opacity but 9% flow. And what I'm going to do is Alt to select and click, and then very slowly just clone over it. So comb over the area that you want to sort of keep a bit of texture but smooth it out a little bit more. Very slowly. Okay. And a little bit under the nose. And a little bit under the eyes. So the texture's still there. Still looks very natural. And it's completely up to you how much you want to do and to what extent. Now the final piece is again optional, and that's if you click on the skin texture mask with B for brush, 30% opacity black brush. Okay, this just smooths it out that little bit more. And again, the great thing about this, if you feel like it's overdone, just change it to a white brush and bring it back slowly. So if I zoom out, before and after. Alright, so there's a little area here that we need to fix up. So I usually turn off the skin texture layer just to see whether it's the texture causing it or whether it's the tones. So in this case it's the tone. So I'll go to skin tone blend, B for brush, X for white brush, 30%, we'll make it 60% opacity, and we'll just paint that area in. Okay. Alright, and this part here happens to be on the texture, so I go skin texture layer, not the mask, but the layer, J, select and drop, select and drop. And there we have it. Okay, you can obviously deal with the flyaway hairs, so drag and drop. And over here. Okay, so here we go, before and after, and then from there you can go on and do a bit of dodge and burn. It's up to you how you do your dodge and burn. I might do a little bit of burn over here. So what I do is click on the background, holding down Shift, click on the top layer, then I hit Control J to copy all of them, and then right click, merge layers, and then I go to O for the dodge tool, or just go over here for the dodge tool. I go mid-tones, 9% exposure, and just paint on a bit of highlights. And just follow the line. So before and after. And because you've got it on an additional layer, if you're feeling like that is just too much, you can simply reduce the opacity of the layer. I usually work in 30%, 60%, 100%, or 0%. So 60 for me. And there we have it. And then you can have a look at copying all those layers. So again, select all, Control J to duplicate them all, and then right click to merge. Okay, and then we can go to alien skin over here. Now I already have my favorite one set up, so before and after. And just pick the one that works for you. Okay. I like this one. The gold. That's lovely too. That's lovely too. I am going to say this one I like the most. Apply. Waiting, 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 waiting. Okay. Now you can either at this point apply curves and then go auto and maybe drop the highlights and see if you're happy with that. Otherwise, Control J to create a copy of that and then go back to, oh, there's my cuckoo clock. So go back to Camera Raw. So to do that, Filter, Camera Raw, and then you can sort of adjust. So for me, I probably open up when you're ready, cuckoo clock. I'll just have a drink of water. Yes, my cuckoo clock has music. All right, let's get back to it. So for me here, I would like to open up a little bit more of the shadows. Maybe a little bit more of the mid-tones, and then drop some of the highlights and the contrast. And maybe a little bit of vibrance, just a tiny bit. Okay, yep, so the before and the after, and from all that, the before and the after. Maybe a little bit more highlights to drop, or drop that down to 60%. Completely up to you. And then we go on to the next image, and we'll be repeating the same actions again on this one. So that's it. Thank you.